carburetors, pulled it out, got my levers on, all within, like 10 minutes, while they're calling for us on the grid. And I just push started it, we push started, got it going, and I've just ridden out onto the grid. Because my theory was, if it's raining, no one's even going to look. That was my theory.
Yeah, so you're in a race, you shouldn't even be in on a short stroke, everyone's on there.
Everyone's on TZ750 Yamaha, and I turned up on a super bike, yeah. Not entered, so pretty cheeky. It's pouring down rain, and I'm thinking, no one noticed me, So I've actually lined up on the front row. Big balls, huh? But everyone's like this with rain, and I'm going, I hope they don't notice. And the race, they just gone like, go, and I've just taken off, and I've just like, in a 4-stroke in those conditions, and everyone's going, and they're 2 strokes, and I just cleared off, and on one lap I've got about 6 seconds, And while I'm going, run by, Mel Pittman, one of the big dealers in Australia, says to Peter Malloy, he goes, oh, what tyres has Wayne got on now? And he goes, no, he's downstairs drinking beer. And he goes, whoa, and he goes, who's that? Oh, that little son of a bitch. And I'm just going off into the distance and won by about half a lap, So I'm thinking, I'm going to be in big trouble when I come back. And I've pulled in, and they've stopped, and they've holden the bike, and while it stopped raining by then, luckily. And then they put a garland around me, and then I look around, and here comes Peter, and Peter's got had polio, and he's got a big limp, and he's coming up, and he's got this really pissed off look on his face. And I went, oh, I'm in big trouble, and I had this silver dish, and I just went, he goes, you, and I went, this is yours. And I gave him this big silver dish, and he goes, oh, fantastic. Oh, I love you. That was fantastic, but you're a little arsehole for doing that, Don't ever do that again. No, don't steal my bike. And anyway, and from that day, we went back and we kissed and made up, and it was all funny. But we went downstairs, and they put the bike in the truck, and I was standing around talking to some people, and the next minute I got a tap on the shoulder by someone. They said, Mr. Moraraki wants to meet you. And I went, oh, really? And so he fortunately was up in the grandstand watching, and he was so impressed how I just cleared off into that. And so he wanted to meet me, and we met up. Peter had calmed down, and he was cool, and he was walking around with his big silver tray. And Moraraki was very nice and said, oh, you are pretty fast son, Wayne, And anyway, Crosby was around at the time as well. And then, because Crosby and Moraraki, or Mamura, was really good friends. So then, about a month, it was all then we went home, did our own thing, and about a month later I got a phone call from Crosby saying, Moraraki's so impressed, he wants to take you to Daytona. And I went, what? He goes, yeah, he's picked you out amongst all the riders that you're the one, and that's where this bike I rode for the first time in Daytona. And I went, oh, I can't believe it. And he goes, yeah. So the rule of all this is stealing pays off, doesn't it?
Crime pays.
Yeah, crime pays. Look, I've always been really cheeky, and I take opportunities when I see them, as long as I think that they're going to work out good. It's a great opportunity, and I did. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been there in Daytona. And then what happened when we got to Daytona with this bike was I finished 4th in this race behind Freddie. Wes Cooley won, Crosby 2nd, Freddie and me, which was an outstanding event. And Peter Malloy was over there with me. And the idea what was going to happen with this is after this race that we're going to sell that in America to the American Superbike guys. And I was going back to Australia with Peter Malloy. But they couldn't sell the bike. So they went, oh, well, because he went so good, why don't we send that to England? And I'd met Roger Marshall then, because he was riding for Moraraki UK. And Roger said, yeah, come and stay with me. And he said, why don't you go and do one race in England and see how you get on, and then we'll sell the bike, and then you go home to Peter Malloy. And Peter said, yeah, good idea, I'll see you in Australia, because I'm building a superbike for you. Okay, great. So I've come over here, I've stayed at Roger's house, he's taught me the circuit at Cadwell Park, and of course I turn up on this thing with this big red jacket on, and I go out and blow the doors off everyone, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I caught up to Crosby in the last few laps. I'm going, hurry up, Cros, because Dave Potter's coming on a 750 Yamaha. And I'm going, hurry up, this is my boss. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll pass Crozzo, and then he'll come flying past me, and I'll be happy if I get second or third, you know, it'll be great. Except I got it, and then Crozzo couldn't pass me, and I ended up winning by about this much, and there's about 10 bikes went over the line, and I won my first race in the UK on this bike. And then Morawaki was crying, I think I was crying, it was just a dream come true. And then it was front page of all the newspapers. And then Morawaki UK, and Crosby said, well, why don't you stay here and race the season? And I went, that's a good idea, but what am I going to tell Peter Malloy? And he goes, well, call him. So I rang Peter and I said, Pete, I'm not coming home, I'm going to stay. He goes, you know, and I said, well, what do I do? He goes, yeah, look, good luck. He said, it's a fantastic chance, and you know, we wish you all the best. And he said, we're here when you come back, and so on. And so yeah, I went on to success, and then of course, by about mid-season, I started. Honda was talking to me, and Yamaha and Suzuki, and
Is it Morawaki or Kawasaki?
it's a Kawasaki based on a Z1R Kawasaki.
Yeah.
The real bike is in Japan. It's still in the museum.
Quite a special bike then. Yeah.
It's a very special bike, and you know what? People are buying these and ordering them like hotcakes at the moment because they think it's cool riding that bike around, and there's a lot of replicas around. I have a replica in a museum in Australia that I built, but that bike is just something sweet, something so nice, and everybody wants one, and it's getting more popular all the time. So it's quite amazing, that story.
It's like it's quite an iconic bike in design and colours, a lot like Freddie's 750 Honda. So that obviously got you the attention from Barry Simmons and the Honda UK team. And at that time, is this true or is this myth? You were living in an Austin 1800 Land Crab. What would yourself and...
I did a lot of things in an Austin 1800.
An ugly car. I know you must have been doing well racing, because you don't pull any women with an Austin 1800.
No.
Did you own an Austin 1800?
I did own an Austin 1800. I bought that. You know what's funny? I was staying in the UK that year, and I went to the auctions and bought that, and it cost me £120 at the auction. At the auction, and I never registered it. I never changed the paperwork. I never insured it. I never did anything. And I drove it round and round and round until I just got tickets. I had a glove box full of tickets on it. When I'd go around roundabouts, I'd drag the doors all the way up and all the way down. So it was a pretty beat up thing in the end. And I'd always get the engine oil out of the race bikes because I didn't want to buy oil and I had no money. And I'd tip it in with like wire and everything into the engine. But it kept going. I mean, the only time it failed was when I had Morawakis. I moved over to a house in Colville near Donington, and middle of the year, and Morawaki came over and his mechanics were staying with me in the house. I was renting a house. And we went over to see Roger Marshall, and Lincoln Hill was this big hill, and I was really praying because the drive in the front wheels it had torn the spline out. Every time we come to a hill, and then we get down the hill, and I went, and then Morawaki's going, whoa, it's a big problem. I think I've won my ticket. And that was before we got to Lincoln Hill, and I'm just thinking, I hope we don't get stopped at the bottom of the hill with the lights, because I've got a car full of Japanese, and my missus, or Donna at the time, and I'm just thinking, how are we going to get up this hill with the spline turning inside the wheels? Anyway, bugger me, we got the lights at the bottom of the hill, and we couldn't get up the hill, and then they all had to get out and start pushing it. And Donna's out there, and I'm sitting in the car going, come on, faster, faster. So they push it up the hill, and then Japanese go, wait, son, one-way ticket, only one-way ticket, no return. I said, yeah, you were right. We got to Roger Marshall's house, we went into the wreckers and bought some new hubs, or second-hand hubs from the wreckers, and put it on and got it going and went back home. But Morawaki used to always look at my car all the time, because I used to have tissues in there, and he goes, what have you been doing, man? Tissues. Yeah, he always used to, he was very clever. I said, no, he said,
it's obviously just probably weeping a little bit of oil from the
exactly. He was check the oil.
So yeah, and so did that relationship naturally come to an end, or was Barry Simmons in charge of Honda UK at the time? Did they make an approach and say you need to stay here and ride a Honda?
Yeah, look, what happened was I drove. It kind of all. It was like it was meant to happen. All these circumstances just happen, and you know, like the Morawaki thing in Australia, and all these strange things, and it was just like going for a ride, you know. And something else could happen, and something else could happen. But Ruth Randall was
Colville, that was
Colville. That's
yeah.
right. I was
You
living
were
there.
attracted to Colville.
Exactly. Yep. And
Because Colville's not somewhere you'd go on holiday. Or
no, well,
choose to-
Jeffrey Sale and Zeta and all the other Aussies
Yeah,
that were
John
racing.
Pace, yeah, there was a lot of them. weren't
That's
there?
right.
Yeah.
They were all living over there, and I got to know them. And Ruth said to me, I said, I really want to go and watch a GP. And she said, well, I don't like driving on the wrong side of the road. How about you drive my car? And she had a Ford Granada or a wagon or something. I said, yeah, okay. And she said, if you drive to the GP, it won't cost you anything. Well, that's a deal. So I drove her